Hello everyone. My name is Varun Sharma and I'm doing master's program in business administration from Liverpool Business School in affiliation with Upgrad. Today I would like to first start thanking you for giving me this opportunity to pursue the program from the university and perform this prestigious study on how to measure the success of a field service implementation for businesses that use it and implementers who implement it. I would really start thanking every member who helped me getting enrolled into the program, helping me to learn various aspects of businesses, to every faculty member who has been there in online sessions or in the live sessions, and finally to this part of the program where we have thesis and really a great support from Liverpool University professors and our thesis guides, our mentors, and practically everyone who is working behind the scenes to make this program a great success for all of us. So, with this, thank you again. I would like to start looking at the motivation and the challenges that we wanted to address from this research. So, if you look at a business in general, what a business is looking for, they want to understand how they are doing first time when they move from a non-automated solution to automated solution, or they could be doing an assessment of their profitability, revenue, or the gain on a regular operational base-to-base day-to-day basis to see how they are improving on their revenues and their key KPIs. Or it may also happen that when there is a change in certain set of resources, their skill set, maybe you're adding new skill sets, maybe you're adding new lines of business that have got different durations and different kind of work that also needs to assess if that impacted our existing KPIs on how well we run our business. When I talk about a business KPI is a measure of how you're running your business well. For example, what is the overall travel cost, or what is the number of jobs that you are scheduling per person per day. So those could be kind of business KPIs, and all these have to be measured, right? So if we have different audience or different stakeholders in a business, it happens that they will have a different feel on how the system is behaving, right? So what will happen in this case? Everyone will have a feel if the system is doing good or bad. But at the end of the day, to support a decision of moving from a non-field force solution to a field force implementation and doing an investment for anyone on a business side or implementer side, it's critical that we understand how we quantify it so that we can show that improvement in terms of number, whether it really impacts our business in a positive way or a negative way. And that can create a ground for assessing the success of a field service implementation, right? So there is always a big question between how we really feel the system is doing versus what is the reality. What are the quantified numbers that can help us? Okay. Now to answer that, we need to understand a few concepts and also map certain dots. Now, what those dots are, the first dot is about understanding what are business KPIs, as I just explained before, the travel cost saving or responding to our customers as soon as possible, or maybe some sort of customer preferences to say, uh, I I would prefer a highly skilled resource to come because it's a repeat visit, or maybe I will prefer same resource to come to me who came last time. So those are some of the preferences from the business side, and how we can measure them in the system is something that is called as a system metric. So system can measure all those jobs that are scheduled to a resource who is marked as a preferred resource or stamped on the job, right? So in this way, what we can do is we can have holistic view of all the business KPIs and all the system KPIs, and then we can assess from various studies what we are going to do as a part of methodology to see how they kind of align to each other and possibly gel and make up a framework where from a business KPI we can understand what are the influencing factors from a system point of view, and from system KPI, if we see these are the KPIs that are improving or going up and down, what's the influencing on the business KPI and how do they reflect? So if you say I'm reducing on the travel time per person per minute, probably I'm doing less travel, right? So it means I can do more job, which should also relate into more job schedule per person per day. which may not be true, but again, we can create some kind of correlation here and adjust them. Now, once we have this data, we tune and create this framework, which is the essence of our research. So with this, let's look at what are the objectives of our research. The first one being that we want to get the most common business KPIs which are relevant to our FSM implementation from a business point of view, what matters to them most, and also see if one goes up, the other goes down. Is that a relation, or they can both go up, they can both go down? How are they kind of related to each one in a collinear fashion? The second one will be about understanding what are the system metrics that can help us to say if one changes, the other one kind of impacts one of the business KPIs. Vision is something we need to understand. Okay, and last but not the least, we want to come up with a kind of framework, a guidance that can say that if the businesses are looking to measure certain set of key KPIs in terms of businesses, how they can measure that via system KPI. So that's a framework that we're trying to design and address. So let's see how we started this journey overall and what was required for it. So the first part for this is to kind of read the data on what exists and how we can understand and connect that. So we took a mixed method approach here where we talked about a qualitative analysis and a quantitative analysis. Okay. For qualitative analysis, we went on to literature review where we looked at what was done by similar industries, similar stakeholders, and how it was done and recorded by various other researchers. So that had, something about the KPI, something about the routing scheduling, something about the car traffic. So there were a lot of, documents that I read through a literature review where I got to know what exactly could be a touch point for field service to talk about KPI. So I could, kind of collect the information to get to a list of business KPI and system KPI. The next one was about the quantitative analysis. Now, to make sure that once you have got this data, is that realistic? So you reach out to the participants, you create a survey where people will say that for my implementation, which I've done like five, seven of them in last 10 years, these are the industries and this is how they measure, for example, travel cost saving, or maybe preferring resource for a specific job like high priority, low priority, or maybe preference around internal and external resources. So, those kind of things come up from away. And also in terms of interviews, so we also found two really, great veterans who have been in the field service domain for a long time, and they shared their thought about what those KPIs and very, very niche, minute difference between connecting travel saving with the response time or doing more work. So again, we'll touch base them on the following slides, but this was really an opener for all of us to see how things are connected. Okay. Let's see what we covered as a part of literature review. So we looked at all the possible angles on how a field service solution can be looked at in terms of their key roles, in terms of the life cycle, in terms of their categorization, appointments without appointments, long duration jobs, short duration jobs, some asset-based solution, some deployment-based solution like on-prem versus cloud-based, complexities, dependent job, non-dependent jobs, and also by industries, also by factors that affect customer satisfaction or business performance. And overall, if you look at these KPIs, these are mostly by resources, by response time, by travel time. So we looked at all this in collection to make sure we have a holistic picture of what KPIs could be available and how we can measure them. Okay, so that was the qualitative part. The second part was about getting information from the participants, which we did in form of surveys. So we kind of struggled to initially create a survey on a free available tool like Google Forms. So what we did is we ended up creating a custom web page that could capture all the information in a specific format with all the consent and all the details. And if you say I consent, yes, you are able to provide. Otherwise, this becomes disabled. So a due care was done to make sure people are able to submit their responses in time. And once you click on Save Survey, the survey gets submitted for the stakeholders. So going from here, what we understood is we had a set of interviews and surveys. Interviews again we took from people with vast experience, so we understood a lot more detail about the metrics there. Now let's try to see what is a real form of this in a real life. So if we look at how the data was stored, we could store all those surveys back in the backend in the database, and we could fetch that and we could put that into an Excel sheet to create finally a graph out of it, right? And these charts were kind of helping us to analyze what was a major piece versus minor piece, and we get what is the connection between business KPIs and system KPIs as per the participants. Further, we also did a reverse mapping of how we can say few of the system metrics could map to a certain business KPI. Okay, so that was also something we discovered. And finally, what we did is we performed a interview for highly skilled resources to get more insights on those mappings on what they feel is really right versus wrong. So the objective was to get the mapping of business KPIs and the system metrics overall. Now, once we have this mapping in place, we could say that business KPIs are mapped to a certain values on the questionnaire versus system mapping. Once people provided that, we understood that we could categorize our business KPIs in terms of travel costs, schedule more work, minimize overtime like this, and also system metric could be equally compared in the same way, either by averages or by percentage. So for travel, you will say average travel per person per job, but for number of jobs scheduled same site, it's like how many you can schedule versus how many were really scheduled. So that's an out of number, right? Percentage. So that's how we could get to these mappings. Now, once we understood these KPIs and metrics, let's look forward on how participants provided the feedback on the mapping. Okay. So once we got these KPIs and mapped out, we put them on a chart, and we found that most of the mappings or most of the people that opted for surveys, maybe they provided a lot of information and implementation for utilities and energy companies, followed by the technology and communication, which also kind of covers the telecom industry. Oil and gas are and BS banking finance are kind of on the lower side because in banking people prefer to go to bank to get services rather than bank officials going to their home for a field visit. And in oil and gas, generally you will see people are or maybe all the workers are kind of assigned to a rig which has got a lot of wealth, so they kind of move in that environment. They don't go outside. So it's really a chance that we need to really schedule those jobs in order, a specific order. So you will see that in terms of reality, this matches with what really happens in the world. Similarly, for other KPIs, looks like the travel cost and response time are the key KPIs for any business, followed by other preferences like utilization or number of jobs scheduled. People haven't cared too much about overtime, which I believe is inherent in the system. That if I'm there on a certain place to do a job and it's only 5 o'clock, I may not look at overtime of 10 minutes. I will do the job today instead of coming tomorrow and travel back from my home to this place. So again, those could be some of the considerations, human factor, where overtime minimization has not been the king, but travel cost is for sure a king. Response time is for sure a king. Scheduling jobs preferences, which is like resource and job preference, is also kind of a important factor here. Okay, so from now we look at how to navigate from business KPIs to system KPIs. We can also look at reverse mapping on how we can see system metrics pointing to certain business KPIs. So what we could do in this case is, based upon the feedback, we could kind of flip it over. Okay, so initially what we were saying is for the top five business KPIs, how do you measure that from a system KPI? Now we reverse it and we say what are the system KPIs that can be relevant for a business KPI, because we are going to measure this part by system and not this part. This will be like an outcome of the framework. Okay, so here we see that if we are looking at response time, which is a system business KPI, there are probably the average response time is the one that can closely associate to it, right? In the same way, we can also associate some other KPIs to the business ones, and this mapping is what is going to help us to create that business value discovery framework. Okay, so if we come here, we see that once we have mapped these business and system metrics, we could easily say that to measure a business KPI of a certain kind, we can look at one or more system KPIs that can have a collective impact to understand what is the real business value realization for a business. Okay, so if you're looking at, for example, travel time, we can say the average travel, the overall travel, the travel between assignment, the travel from and last job. All those are the factors on the system KPI side that influence the travel time or travel cost factor on the business side, and that is what can help us to realize how and how well we are doing in terms of travel time, travel cost saving. Okay, So if you look at a sample example based upon one of the participants who agreed to share the data with us anonymously, we see that based upon certain change in scheduling behavior by say, optimizing or making some config changes, we are able to schedule jobs with lesser average travel time, but then we see the number of jobs scheduled has reduced by two, right? So it may happen that so this gives you a different kind of understanding that you will believe that if you are spending less time on travel, you will have more time for work. But what essentially may have happened here is that I'm measuring KPI for day one, and travel on day one is not too good, but travel on day two is good. That's why the work from day one I shifted to other days. It also has a repercussion that if you have a lot of jobs which have a SLA of a month, maybe you're stacking up all the job toward the end of the month, and you may miss those SLAs, right? Because in the initial of the month you are not having any work, you're not too loaded, but towards the end of month you are really pressed because you have a lot of jobs that have moved due to the travel time there because you had an appointment to go to customer near that area. So that's how optimization or scheduling can impact your scheduling behavior, and that's how your business values or your business KPIs can really be impacted. So you need to have a kind of a close look on how things are moving. Maybe in this case you do an average over a month or a week, or maybe you optimize only a week at a time. So those are all the considerations that as an implementer or a business can decide on how it can be done. Okay, but this is a very very good example to understand how KPIs kind of balance or counter each other or complement each other. So this is the beauty of this framework on how you can really see your business, moving in a certain direction as per your business needs and your vision. Now, talking about the contribution of this whole research to community, I would say this is the first ever approach I've seen where we have tried to map a business KPI with a system KPI and vice versa, and also to come up with a business value delivery based framework that could help you with a quantified number. So if I, as a business, taken a decision that I want to implement field service solution for my company, I also need to stand by and say by implementing that we got certain improvement, we got more number of jobs scheduled, we got the travel savings. So that's a return of investment I have on my side, right? So to prove the case of what I invested or what I suggested to invest in the solution is what I gained in terms of ROI. So these are kind of really important KPIs for implementer on how much you know as a company you got for licenses or for implementation, and what is the customer gain. So customer will be willing to spend more money to have it kind of extended for other line of businesses. So these are kind of going in hand to hand and really help support decision making at a higher level on how field service solutions should be implemented. Also, a personal learning for me is here that I got to know about the survey tool, which was a bit complex using the Google Form. So I developed the website. So that website is again something I could see as a contribution to capture those data on a very, very accurate level, right? So those accurate results could help us to see more related results in our analysis and also the results set. Now, the reflection I see from this is I started understanding this domain a bit on a high level, but the way I read these articles, went to these experts, talked to people in my networking, I really got to know that there is a lot of details which are going inside, right? And just sending a field service guy to perform a job in field is not as easy as just deciding it on the fly. It takes a lot of decision making. It takes a lot of processing to understand what are the factors like vocation, skill sets, availabilities, non-availabilities, and the requirement of the job, requirement of the location. So there are a lot of factors, government licensing. So it could be a lot that comes into picture while scheduling a single job to a resource. So those are kind of an eye opener for me, and I also learned how to write articles, good articles. So when you read good articles, you are motivated to write good articles. So my reflection from here will be that with this knowledge that I gained so far, I'll be willing and going forward to write some good articles on field service management solution on how these KPIs can really influence our customers and how they can take full benefit of it. And that kind of results in my future work as well, that for people who want to do some more work on top of this as a future work could probably take up this framework and try to see how it can be applied to more data sets of different variety, different flavors, different industries, and also how you can use this framework to not just get instantaneous value of a business KPI via service system KPIs, but you can set up something to capture it on a regular basis that gives you a trend. That if you're making some changes to your automation, your software, is that translating into a better revenue or better KPI improvement? And that can be done probably by a dashboard or a reporting mechanism by some SQL queries. I don't know what that could be, but it will be. But this kind of opens up door for other people to kind of deep dive into those areas, try to see if those tools can be developed in concrete languages like .NET, C Sharp, or Java, or whatever Apex codes they have. So it opens up a lot of opportunities for others to deep dive into this domain, develop something, and I'm really passionate about it now. So if anyone needs any help, I will be willing to kind of help them with more details about going forward. So again, all the best to everyone. Thank you very much for listening to all these details patiently. I know I'm a bit passionate about this topic now after spending like 6 months and understanding how things work in detail. And it's full of innovation, full of excitement, full of new details that you capture, and there's a eye opener. So I would say it helped me to develop as an individual into this field service domain, and helps me to kind of gain more knowledge. So thank you again to all the participants. Thank you again to all the teachers, guides, mentors, and everybody on ground to help me complete this thesis and research work in time and provide your guidance. Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye for now.